Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Sesh. If you're new around here, then this is the series where I talk about a major update of a gacha game I like. Our topic today, version 3.6 of Honkai Star Rail. We are once again making this video later than I would have wanted, but we're only about a week late this time, so we're getting a little closer to being on target with each passing update. So 3.6, how could we not be excited just based off Evernight's release alone? And of course, how could we forget Terravox? I unfortunately missed out on pulling Evernight due to the fact that I pulled Saridra, but I have a feeling she will be rerunning soon enough, so I'm not too worried about it. Because I knew I wouldn't be able to get her, I didn't do much research into her kit or her animations, but I have a feeling that they're the most beautiful things in the world, because Evernight's very, very pretty, and a lot of love and detail went into just her character and cutscenes, so of course they probably did the same for her animations. Nobody tell me what they look like though, or what her kit is, because I want to be surprised when I get her. Terravox, on the other hand, I was very excited for. A little backstory on me, I started playing HSR so early that the North American server wasn't out yet, so my original account was on the European server. I played a little bit, I finished the Herta Space Station, and I started Eurilo 6, but I didn't play too much before I decided to drop the game. I don't really remember why I dropped it, but it honestly was most likely just not the right time or place for me, especially because at the time I was still very heavily into Genshin Impact, so a lot of my gacha time budget was allocated to Genshin. But what does that have to do with Terravox? Well, when I caught wind of Imbibitor Lunai's release, I locked the fuck in. So I started seriously playing HSR during or right before Kafka's very first banner. Danheng IL was my first ever 5-star, and he was my main DPS basically until I pulled the Herta, so basically all the way up till 3.0. I was literally the person using IL against Aventurine in Penacony, even though he had imaginary resistance because he was just my goat. He was my guy. So, of course, when I caught the slightest scent of wind that there was going to be another Danheng, I was naturally very excited. I didn't originally know that he was going to be free, so I was kind of like, fuck, I have to pull another Danheng. But I was really happy that they decided to release him for free because, like I said, I just love him, and, I already invested so many resources into IL, so free Danheng, yay. I was honestly very excited that he was a preservation unit just because it's been so long since we've had a preservation character. Aventurine was the last one that was released, and he was pretty revolutionary when he came out. So I assumed that if they were going to release another preservation character, they'd have to be pretty great. Otherwise, what would be the point? And Danheng did not disappoint. I love his animations too. Just look at how beautiful they are and the details, like in the dragons and everything. And I'm also very excited that he's good in my Finon comp because I finally finished building my Saridra, and my Sunday's already done too. So once I finish building him, my main DPS might be changing to my Finon team. My main team might be my Finon team. Yeah, I want that to be true, but I also really love Anaxa, and that's kind of why I want to keep my third comp, but I don't know, we'll see what I end up doing. I want to say as well about Danheng that I'm really happy that his character came out in time for the VAs to be back with everything, just because I really, really love Danheng's voice actor, and I really do love the new voice lines and how much power he puts into them. Danheng sounds very strong and steady, like the earth he's meant to represent, so I really, really do love his new kit and his new voice lines. That's kind of what I have to say about the characters in terms of banner and meta-wise, but I will talk about them a little bit more during the story aspect of this video. And yeah, so let's go on to talk about some of the events. So the big event had to do with Dromas, and of course we're excited because if my goat loves Dromas, then of course we love Dromas too. I mentioned this in the last Sesh, but I really, really enjoyed the cooking event in 3.5 because it let us see the Amphorius cast interact in a lower stakes environment. And I like this event for similar reasons. The event had us raising a baby droma into a big super droma, and we basically had to balance its schedule so we could train its stats while also making sure its stress didn't get too high and stuff like that. The gameplay kind of reminded me of Princess Maker. I don't know if anybody who's watching this has ever played those games because they're kind of niche, but it was very similar to me in that sense. Now, I referenced the event in 3.5 because this one had the same emotional effect on me, but rather it being because of the characters, it was more because of the environment. There weren't as much interactions with the Amphorius characters, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing because instead we could focus on the Trailblazer and their relationship with Dromacilla, which was so sweet because the Trailblazer can be kind of silly, so any event that has them locking in a way that they feel like they need to kind of be a parent or like, you know, be a peer to someone is always so sweet. And seeing Kylus just trying to be his best parent, be the best parent he could be, even though he doesn't really know too much about everything, was just so funny. But yeah, really seeing Akuma being peaceful and like chill was really nice. That's kind of why I compare it to the cooking event, because rather than seeing the characters in a lower stakes environment, we're now seeing like the city of Akuma in a lower stakes environment. Like there's no like world ending catastrophe on the horizon, and everyone is kind of relaxed and like they can just live their lives. And it was just it was a very nice reprieve from everything going on in the story. This is especially true because I played the events before I started the story with Evernight and everything, so it just really did feel like a nice break after everything that happened with Ceridra and Hysealans. 3.6 also introduced a couple of game modes for the multiplayer games that HSR introduced. Seal Slammers has the double seal mode now, where each of your 3 seals can have another seal giving them a passive ability. I never actually played the multiplayer game mode, and while I did find the changes to Seal Slammers fun, I don't think I'd find myself playing it without the incentive of the additional rewards. Now, I am a little bit sad though, because I only really recorded 1 round of Seal Slammers just to like have footage to show you guys. But in the round that I recorded, I got like shat upon. I got clapped by my opponent. So I was like, damn, this is kind of embarrassing. I don't really want to show this, but I also didn't want to record another round because I didn't really... I just didn't want to. But yeah, I did take a screenshot of one of my matchups just to prove that I'm not completely shit at Seal Slammers. So yeah, but anyways. Bird Clash, on the other hand, I kind of enjoyed the all-out battle arena with like 32 other people. I would maybe play that one again because it was fun, but it was also way more time-consuming than the Seal Slammers was. But man, like, look at this round. Fucking Anaxa account supremacy. I was kind of sad I lost in the end because I was literally at the top for so long. But yeah, between the two, I think Bird Clash would be more up my alley to play, but I don't really know if I'll engage with either of them again. I'm not too sure. The last event that was available was just a combat one, but I did enjoy the mechanics of each challenge, and I like getting to use different characters that I don't normally use. The last challenge letting you use all the trial characters and all of their mechanics was also super fun because I was literally just blowing people up with Sampo's ult. Unlike every single other version update, I actually did the events a couple weeks before the version ended, so I did not feel rushed to complete them, and I actually enjoyed them way more. So, note to myself, try not to leave everything to the last minute. And now we can talk about the story. Unlike before, there's not really going to be a non-spoiler section in this story update where I talk about it, so you have been warned that spoilers might come up from this point onward. This update, oh my goodness. If you're an Astral Express enjoyer, then this is the update for you, because they're once again front and center as we dig into a few more mysteries of Amphorius. Evernight enters with a bang, immediately giving off these mysterious and sinister vibes. She seems to know everything and be everywhere, and yet we seem to know nothing about her at all. How could we, with how much control she has over Amphorius and memories? Working through the timeline and the mystery of where Evernight came from and where March 7th went was super engaging the whole time, and I really enjoyed the way the story bounced back and forth between Cyrene, Black Swan, the Trailblazer, and Dan Heng to weave this narrative that constantly had me feeling like there was something I was still missing, and if I only progressed a little further, I would understand everything. Speaking of Dan Heng, as I mentioned earlier, he was my first 5-star unit, and he remains one of my favorite characters to this day. I loved his entire segment as he traveled towards Terravox. I think that Dan Heng became an infinitely more interesting character when he stopped denying his memories and his past and instead accepted them as something that is part of him, but doesn't define him. And because of that, the entire journey with Dan Feng and seeing the memories of the High Cloud Quintet and Dan Feng's resolve were super interesting, especially with the payoff of meeting Terravox and Geocles and learning about their obsession with the permanence. Dan Heng pitying them and wishing to release them from their obsession with eternity and the permanence was so interesting when considering how closely he relates to that feeling. Dan Feng admits that he abused the power of permanence to bring back Bai Heng, and that he would have done so for any member of the High Cloud Quintet, and would have done so again if given the chance to make those decisions all over again. So of course, Dan Heng seeing Terravox's similar desires would empathize with him. Dan Heng promised to use the power of permanence not in a way that ends in tragedy as Dan Feng did, but instead as a way to carry the will of the earth and all living things forward was a really beautiful journey that I really thought brought a lot of closure to some aspects of his character. Not to mention, a lot of the cutscenes for this segment were just very beautifully animated. What I really enjoyed about this update, as I mentioned a little earlier, was the focus on the Express crew and their relationship with one another. I already talked about Dan Heng's individual journey, and I'll talk about March momentarily. But before that, I wanted to say that I really liked how much focus was on the fact that the Express crew are family. This fact is evident in every update, but isn't always the main focus. And this version, it definitely was one of the founding points. I bring it up especially as we move into March's section to talk about because March has always been a character with high amounts of emotional intelligence. She understands the people around her very well and trusts in her family implicitly. And that was a large part of the reason why she was able to remain true to herself and regain control over Evernight. And speaking of Evernight, I really enjoyed her as a character. She was sinister and presented herself as a very powerful obstacle, but at her heart, she was a very sincere part of March 7th. She reminded me a lot of Madeline from Celeste, and to a lesser extent Vanitas from Kingdom Hearts. I really liked that she was seemingly a villain, but in actuality she was trying to protect March and manifested in a way that was commanding and overbearing. Very similar to Madeline in the sense that while she had good intentions, and she was a part of March that exists, she was still an obstacle that needed to be overcome for March to move forward. I also guessed very early on that Evernight had something to do with the Enigmata. I kind of fell into an obsession with the Enigmata and the history fictionologist because of my obsession with Gallagher when Penacony released. So with the way that Evernight was talking about hating the remembrance and representing oblivion, while also siding with the destruction to destroy the erudition, I felt that her thoughts fell in line with the beliefs of the Pathstriders of the Enigmata, almost to a T. I mentioned to my boyfriend in passing that I thought they might be related, so I was very excited when Evernight name-dropped the Enigmata near the end of the quest. I also wanted to say that I really liked the focus on March and Dan Heng being almost foils to one another. Dan Heng's seemingly endless struggle with coming to terms with his past and being able to move on to the future contrasts March really nicely with her desire to just keep moving forward. She does want to learn about her past, and she does feel pain and confusion about the fact that she doesn't remember it, but she's also wholly devoted to the Trailblaze, and her heart truly lies among the stars. I mention this because while we got a lot of little nuggets about where March really comes from, her being a pure child of the remembrance, I can't say the word that they said exactly, but I'll put it up on the screen, there still seems to be a lot to uncover about her going forward, which is something to look forward to. As always, I'm a week or two, I don't even remember how late I am at this point on this video, but I really hope I will actually finish this version update in time to release my next Yap Sesh during the Fine on Mighty Cypher rerun. So I'm very excited to get into what's going on with the Cyrene quest, and yeah! Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.